The Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was in India last week for the 23rd India-Russia summit held in New Delhi, made a strong statement which is being interpreted as sending a signal to the Western world. He said, Russia stands ready to provide uninterrupted shipments of fuel to India. Also, in an interview to an Indian news channel, he said, if the US has the right to buy our fuel, why shouldn't India have the same privilege? This question deserves thorough examination, and we stand ready to discuss it, including with President Trump. Well, in this episode of Energonomics, we decode the emerging geopolitics with main characters as India, Russia, and the US, with our host, Richa Mishra, who is the resident editor with the Hindu BusinessLine. Thank you, Richa, for joining us. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Renil.
Richa, my first question to you about all that has taken place is, how do you read Putin's statement?
That is one question, Renil, which is being interpreted and dissected by almost all of us. On the face of it, clearly, he didn't mince words and sent both political and economic signals. Putin underscored Russia's readiness to ensure steady supplies of oil, gas, coal, and nuclear fuel, framing the pledge as reinforcement of a bilateral relationship that can withstand geopolitical pressure. The assurance comes as a direct counter to US criticism, including tariffs imposed by President Trump on Indian goods over claims that India's purchases of Russian crude indirectly support Moscow's war effort in Ukraine.
Well, will it work?
It's a balancing act, I would say. It is not easy as Russia cannot fully guarantee uninterrupted deliveries given constraints on the shadow fleet, insurance, payments, sanctions pressure, drone attacks on infrastructure. So you see, there are a lot of elements involved. Putin's remark is best seen as a strategic reassurance rather than a literal guarantee. I would say Moscow is signaling that it wants to remain a dependable supplier to one of its largest remaining markets. In fact, in last couple of days, I believe, and what I've been reading, that select Indian refiners, including a few state-controlled entities and Naira Energy, are back in the market contracting Russian crude oil, as discounts on the flagship Ural grade from Moscow have widened to around $7 per barrel.
Well, Richa, coming to the last question, I feel this is quite important. Where does India stand?
You're very right. It's very, very important for India to make its presence felt. India is currently navigating a challenging geopolitical landscape where its two major partners are in opposition over the war in Ukraine. India has consistently maintained a policy of strategic autonomy. We must remember that Russia prior to 2022 was never one of the top crude oil suppliers to India. Russia has gained ground and become top supplier of oil to India since 2022. Besides this, there are multiple aspects to be kept in mind. The geopolitical and economic dimensions are both essential. Also, the political leaders will not want to be seen as bending down to the US sanctions. I feel as long as Russian barrels remain highly cost competitive, India will look at the supply options. For Russia, keeping India as a steady buyer helps offset declining exports as sanctions pressure key firms such as Rosneft. Also for India, reliable Russian fuel flow supports its economic growth trajectory and reduces exposure to supply disruptions from the Middle East. What is most important, first and foremost for India, is to maintain energy security and follow the principle of, I would say, every country for themselves.
Thank you for tuning in. This was Richa Mishra and Renil in this episode of Energonomics. See you soon.